Hi Rockstars, I'm Allie, your RockStarBarGirl, and this week's video is all about Manhattans. If you caught last week's video, then you learned about the Martini. This is sort of the sister to the Martini. It's the whiskey version of the Martini. So there are some similarities, but there are also some key differences, so we're going to go over all of those today. Just like the Martini, the Manhattan is a classic cocktail made with vermouth, sweet vermouth in this case, and whiskey, usually a bourbon. Because it is made with vermouth, just like a proper Martini, a proper Manhattan should be built in a glass shaker, stirred with a bar spoon, and then gently strained into a chilled Martini glass. And just like the Martini, in casual, high-volume environments, a lot of the proper techniques are thrown out the window, and we do things like shake the Manhattan, not use a jigger for pouring, etc. So, similar to the Martini video, first we're going to build a Manhattan the proper way so that the purists and mixologists out there don't have a heart attack, and then we're going to look at how you're more likely to build a Manhattan in a dive environment. So step one, whether we're talking about shaking our cocktail, stirring our cocktail, or what type of bar we are in, we want to have a chilled Martini glass. So if you work in a place where you make martinis frequently, you might have some Martini glasses sitting in a fridge chilling for you. If not, just go ahead and add ice and club soda or water before you start building your cocktail so that can get nice and cold. To build your proper Manhattan, you'll need a glass shaker, you will need a bar spoon, we need a jigger, and then in terms of our recipe, we are going to need sweet vermouth and a bourbon. I'm going to use the Bullet, and then we need cherries as our garnish. For the martinis, we learned that we garnish with either an olive or a lemon twist. It's up to the customer. For a Manhattan, because it's made with sweet vermouth, we will be garnishing with a cherry, and that's really the only option. Just like with our martinis, before we can build the cocktail, we're going to need some information from a customer. Customers do tend to ask for Manhattans just as Manhattans. They don't realize that you need other information, so you're going to have to ask them a couple of questions. For a Manhattan, you only need to know two things, and that is, first, what type of bourbon they would like. Just like a Martini, people are not as likely to choose your well bourbon option for their cocktail. It's something you sip on, so you want something nicer. So you're going to find out what type of bourbon they'd like. Again, I'm going to use the Bullet. And then you want to ask them if they want it up or on the rocks. Just like a Martini, and just like any other cocktail really, the customer always has the option of having it strained into a chilled Martini glass, or having it built and then strained over ice. So to build our Manhattan properly, we have a chilled Martini glass, which I've already garnished with my cherry. I'm going to take my glass shaker, and I need a bar spoon of sweet vermouth. And then I'm going to add my bourbon. If you remember from the Martini video, your standard Martini glass is a 4-ounce glass. So I'm going to pour myself 3 ounces of whiskey. Ice, and stir. You want to stir enough for proper dilution and temperature. Remember, you want it to be very cold because this is going to be strained with no ice. Manhattan straight up. Manhattans, just like martinis, also have a lot of different variations on them. But what's different is that whereas the martini variations like the Gibson and the In-N-Out don't get ordered very often in casual environments, the variations on the Manhattans do come up. So because they do come up from time to time and there's some vocab and stuff you need to know about them, I want to go over them for you. So the first variation on a Manhattan that you need to know is what's called a perfect Manhattan. And it's very simple. It's built the same way we just built our regular Manhattan. The only difference is that we're going to use a little sweet and a little dry vermouth. So all you want to do when you're beginning your cocktail is to take your glass shaker and use about 1/2 of a bar spoon of dry vermouth and 1/2 of a bar spoon of sweet vermouth. Because you're using dry vermouth in the cocktail, you want to go ahead and garnish that cocktail with a lemon. And that would be a perfect Manhattan. Another variation on the Manhattan that's good to know is what's called a Rob Roy. A Rob Roy is simply a Scotch Manhattan. Again, built the exact same way as our regular Manhattan. You'd need a bar spoon of sweet vermouth, and then you'd need 3 ounces of whiskey. But rather than reaching for a bourbon, you are going to grab a Scotch, and of course you want to ask the guests which Scotch they prefer. Because that cocktail is still a sweet vermouth cocktail, there's no dry vermouth in it, you would garnish it with a cherry, just like a regular Manhattan. And the last variation on the Manhattan that we're going to learn is the Southern Comfort Manhattan, or the SoCo Manhattan. It's important to go over this one because it's the wackiest and weirdest. So first of all, Southern Comfort, what is it? So, bottle of Southern Comfort. Southern Comfort is a cordial it's an American cordial. It's like a peaches and honey flavored cordial, so it's pretty sweet, and it's a very different flavor profile from a regular Manhattan. Instead of working with something that is purely a spirit, we're talking about something that's got a lot of sugar in it. So because we're working with something that's really sweet already, we're not going to add sweet vermouth to this. We're going to add dry vermouth. So that's something you're just going to have to remember, that the Southern Comfort Manhattan gets dry vermouth instead of sweet vermouth. But it's very similar to building your regular Manhattan. So we need our dry vermouth, and we're going to use a bar spoon of that. And then we need 3 ounces of our Southern Comfort. I'm going to free pour this time. Ice. And this time I am going to shake it. Be still your hearts. Tilt, tap, and turn, and shake. We're going to strain this into a rocks glass with ice. Because we're using dry vermouth, we're going to garnish it with a lemon twist. So whenever we're using dry vermouth, we garnish with a lemon. That's your Southern Comfort Manhattan on the rocks. Definitely thumbs up, like it. If you have any questions, leave them down below in the comment section, and of course subscribe. If you aren't already, follow me on Instagram at RockStar_bargirl. I've got discount codes, how-to tips, all kinds of good shit, so definitely check it out, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye, Rockstars.